Okay, for this lesson, we're going to be talking about gastrulation and moving on from the whole blastula to the next step of forming the gastrula. So now, after we formed our blastula, our ball of cells, now we're moving on to forming our gastrula, which just means that the three germ layers are formed. And so we have our mesoderm, our endoderm, and our ectoderm. So the mesoderm will eventually become your muscle and organs. So think meso, muscles. And then your endoderm will become your gastric and respiratory tract. And then your ectoderm becomes your skin. So the first organism we're going to talk about is the sea urchin. So here, like we talked about before, we end with these different blastomeres that are formed. And then they're going to move into this circular shape just to make them more conducive and have that interaction between the different cell types. And then here we have our blastocele in the center. And then here our vegetal hemisphere is going to flatten. And then we'll have our primary mesenchyme cells enter this blastocele. Then the next step, after you have both your primary and your secondary mesenchyme cells entering that blastocele, you are going to have your micrometer descendants, and they're going to shorten and pull upwards, and that's going to form your Archanterone right here, and then your blastopore is going to be right here formed. And then the next step, it just becomes more developed, and you have things like your scrotal rods here, and your stomaduum, which will later become the mouth. And then eventually it starts to form your organism, and here we have our mouth and your anus of your sea urchin organism. Now for the frog, here you have different anatomy here. Here you have these bottle cells, which help form the dorsal lip of this blastopore. And so the bottle cells are just going to push upward, eventually displacing the blastocele and moving around the cells. So here you can kind of see the Archanterone and that blastopore forming more and becoming more pronounced. And then eventually it'll all move in a way, and then you'll have a yolk plug here, just this mesoderm sticking out, and then this ventral lip of the blastopore formed. Now for the chick, again we have our area opaca here and our area pellucida, and posterior epiblast cells are going to thicken, and that's going to form your primitive streak here, and it'll continue to elongate until it eventually looks like this. And then here at your Hensen's node, your cells are going to invaginate there. And so here's another view of just seeing the epiblast cells go and invaginate at this Hensen's node. And then eventually we know the epiblast goes and differentiates into the different cell types. So you can kind of see that here. And again, there's just your hypoblast for your support. And this Hensen's node here is also an elongated blastopore. And I think that covers everything that we're going to talk about in this lesson. Again, we'll have our quiz on our Instagram so you can quiz your understanding and knowledge on this topic. And I hope you guys have a nice day.